Now, benefits fraud is costing taxpayers £7.4 billion a year, according to figures released by the Department for Work and Pensions. Benefit spending is at a stonking £266.1 billion, and 22.7 million people now receive welfare payments. This, some say, is a deliberate target for organised crime groups, while the DWP says it is ramping up anti-fraud measures, including enhanced scrutiny of suspicious universal credit claims and also hiring more staff. But worryingly, it seems that attitudes towards benefit fraud has softened, with a recent survey revealing more people are becoming indifferent about workers not even declaring cash-in-hand jobs. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Darwin Friend, Head of Research at the TaxPayers Alliance. Also still with my panel, Miriam, former Conservative MP, and Lord Maurice Glasman, Labour peer and academic. Let's start with you, Darwin. We were all led to believe that benefit fraud was a blip during COVID. Astonishingly, it's got worse. It wasn't a blip, it's set a new pattern.
Yeah, exactly. And what we've actually seen from the latest accounts from the Department for Work and Pensions is that the propensity for fraud in our society as a whole is set to increase, and that universal credit fraud is now not expected to ever fall back to pre-pandemic levels as was first expected. And when we look at the amount of universal credit fraud in the last year alone, it was £6.5 billion. Now, there's a lot of discussion in Westminster at the minute about 5.5% pay rises for teachers and for nurses, and lifting the universal, the two-child benefit cap. Well, both of those things could be paid for if they clamped down on benefits fraud in the department first.
Sounds good, but the intention might be there, but what about the modus operandi? How do they do it? They haven't managed to recoup anything since COVID. What's going to change now?
Well, that is the key question, Martin. And I don't know about you, but I think the department simply throwing in the towel, as they have done, and saying that the issue of fraud in our society is inexorably just going to rise and there's nothing that we can do about, frankly, isn't good enough from a government department. When we look at how the country has dealt with crises such as these in the past, it's not like this. And more fundamentally, I think the Department for Work and Pensions has an obligation, actually, to crack down on this practice so that then taxpayers' money is being spent on the public's priorities instead of dished out to benefit fraud.
Now, Rachel Reeves announced yesterday plans to appoint a benefits fraud commissioner. They're hopeful of recouping £2.6 billion. Are you hopeful that this will have any teeth?
Well, I'm hoping that it will. I welcome the fact that they're seriously wanting to look at this as an issue. But what really concerns me about this is it's yet another quango. And frankly, that's going to come at an expense to taxpayers as well. So I think before they proceed with any new quango such as this, they really need to drill down into the detail and see whether it's actually going to have any impact on the problem or whether it's just going to be another cost for taxpayers to shill out for.
OK, let's bring in the panel now. Maurice, let's start with you. Fraud, a huge problem. It's not going away. In fact, it's getting worse. What do we need to do? Do we need to have stiffer jail sentences? Do we need to stop benefits at source? Do we need much more stick and less carrot?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd say to Darwin that I think you need to evolve, so to speak. I think Liz Kendall, as DWP Minister, is pretty hardline. She's not from my wing at all of the party, but once again, as I said to you earlier, be open to the fact that welfare reform is going to be a key characteristic of this government.
In what way? Now, a lot of people, for right or for wrong, might have the attitude that the Labour Party is softer on benefits, likes the votes of people on benefits. Why would they clamp down?
That would be the lazy assumption that you would imagine. But what I'm saying to you, to be open to the fact that in this cabinet, there's two really strong welfare reform hardliners. There's Liz Kendall and there's Wes Streeting. Now, they've very publicly said that this has got to change. I'm a big follower of Frank Field. There's got to be fundamental, mutual. But we've got to also look at this in terms of, first of all, just to say to Darwin, it's not just the state that people have lost trust in. There's also corporate crony capitalism in COVID. All that money going to friends of the Prime Minister.
Yeah, but this is specifically benefits frauds we're talking about.
Yeah. But when we're talking about the decline of trust in society, it's not just, I'm agreeing with you, there's a lack of trust in the state and people are cheating. This is a really big problem for our society. And obviously, I'm looking to my government, this Labour government, to restore some trust. Part of that has got to be that you put in and you get out. That reciprocity principle is fundamental. This is going to be a huge change. I mean, Miriam, let's be truthful, we've been on the same side of this for a long time. and you've got to look at it in the balance, Martin. You know, this is the balance we've got to find, is that there's also capitalist corporates who cheat all the time. Amazon is stealing data. So people are cheating Amazon. So we've got to actually address the culture of cheating, why it is.
Miriam, let's get back to benefits fraud amongst benefit claimants. The numbers are astonishing. £266.1 billion in the last tax year spent on benefits, second only now to the NHS.
But 135 billion of that, so over half, is the state pension.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody is organising crime around the state pension, although who knows. But I do largely agree with Maurice. This is a symptom of a low trust society. And any system like this, where essentially you require people to be honest about their situation, when they're claiming benefits, you require them to be honest about their income, about their working hours, about their dependents. If the vast majority of people are honest, the system will work. If you break down that trust, and most people aren't honest, unless they think they're going to get caught, how is the government supposed to solve that problem? You either have a high trust society or you have a high surveillance society. And that's what we're looking at. And actually, before the election, Mel Stride, who was the Conservative DWP secretary, he was looking at introducing surveillance of people's bank accounts to require banks to tell the government if a person had more savings than they ought to have. Now, I find that terrifying from a civil liberties point of view. But the fact is, if you can't trust people to be honest, that is what we're staring down the barrel of. And you can't just blame the government for that. Yes, COVID didn't help. People thought money was free. They didn't see the cost of it, and we're paying for that now. But actually, politics is downstream of culture. Our whole culture has changed. And unless it changes back to high trust society, we're just going to see more and more of this.
Okay, final word to you, Darwin Friend. Do you think that's the answer? Tony Blair has stated the last few weeks we'd like to have digital ID for everybody. Is that the way now? We're all going to have ID because a few people cheat. We'll all be monitored.
Well, like Miriam, I'm not particularly keen personally on having civil liberties infringed upon any further than they already are. But as was mentioned earlier, I really want this government to reset the relationship with the general public, not just in terms of benefits, but throughout the entire public sector, because it's only by resetting that relationship, building trust back with individuals throughout society, that ultimately we're going to grapple on this. Because before the pandemic, benefit fraud was around about 2.4% of the Department of Work and Pensions budget spending. Now it's 6.7%. So it's only by resetting that relationship that we're ultimately going to crack down on this issue.
And Darwin, what I'm saying to you is also not just public sector, private sector fraud. I don't see your organisation going into that, and I urge you to go into that.
Okay, guys, we have to move on. Thank you very much, Darwin Friend, also, of course, Miriam and Maurice. Now,